Welcome to Time of Death. This video is for informational purposes and in no way meant to glorify or condone violence. In today's video, we'll be discussing the murder of Richard Hernandez and Juan Manuel Alviso. Both were shot and killed May 3rd, 2007 in the 4700 block of Elizabeth Street in Cudahy, according to LA County Coroner records. Stephen Daniel Rivera was subsequently arrested and charged with the murders. The following is the evidence at trial. Two eyewitnesses testified they saw the defendant shoot the victims in broad daylight in the middle of the street near the ABC Market and a school. One of the eyewitnesses, according to the defendant's own testimony, had known the defendant since he was 14 years old. This witness, RR, had been a volunteer coach at a nearby park. He testified he was going to the market when he heard a voice calling coach. The voice came from the back seat of a car parked in the street. RR walked up to the car and saw the defendant sitting in the back seat with his brother Richard smoking marijuana. The defendant asked RR what he was up to and invited him to get in the car. Defendant said he was waiting for someone. RR did not get in the car and the defendant told him to go before something happens, adding he didn't want RR to get caught around there. RR crossed the street heading toward the market and saw a white van pull into the parking lot of the market, back out and park on the street. As he watched, the car in which the defendant was sitting with his brother pulled up alongside the white van. RR watched the defendant get out of the back seat holding two guns, which he immediately began shooting into the car. RR hid behind a street pole, then ran behind a wall. He saw a child hiding behind a phone booth outside the market, picked him up and then ran inside the market with him. He saw another child hiding behind a car, grabbed him by the backpack and pushed him into the market. Shortly after he entered the market, RR was shoved to the floor from behind by a man who had been a passenger in the van. He fell against RR, bleeding profusely from the mouth. After police arrived, RR spoke to an officer but only gave partially truthful information. Because he had lived in the neighborhood for 17 years, gang members were gathering around signaling him to say nothing, and he feared retribution. RR saw defendant 2 days later at a nearby swap meet. The defendant signaled to RR to come speak with him. When he drew near, the defendant lifted his sweater to display a gun in his waistband. The defendant told RR that his friends wanted to take him out, and the defendant told him that he was a cool person and not to worry. But defendant warned RR, "If I gotta do what I gotta do, I'll do it." RR asked the defendant why he shot the victims, and defendant replied that they had once disrespected him. At trial, the defendant admitted knowing RR and having seen him at the swap meet, but denied making any statements threatening RR to keep quiet. When RR spoke with the sheriff's homicide detective investigating the murders about 2 weeks after the shootings, he identified the defendant in a photographic lineup as the person who shot the two guys in the van. RR identified the defendant as Steven, Little Bam Bam from JBI. The second eyewitness, NT, testified that while driving to work, he saw a light gray four-door car pull out into traffic about 100 feet ahead of him, near the ABC Market and the school. He saw the car come up to a stop next to a white van with two men inside. NT stopped at the crosswalk about 150 feet behind the van. He watched as the defendant got out of the car, withdrew a gun, and fired in through the front driver's side window of the white van. He saw the passenger get out of the car and run into the market. NT got a good unobstructed look at the defendant as he turned back to get into his car, even locking eyes with him for a moment. Watching the car carrying defendant as it peeled off, NT pursued the car in an effort to get the license plate but did not succeed. A gang expert testified the defendant was a member of JBI, a gang known by several names with those initials, including Just Blasting Idiots, Just Blazing It, and Just Being Insane. Its primary activities include murder, attempted murder, and assault with a deadly weapon, among other crimes. The shootings were not committed in JBI territory, but in territory of the rival 18th Street, which had several ongoing feuds with JBI at the time of the shooting, although the victims were tattooed with the initials of another rival gang, the Bell Garden Locals. Following the trial, defendant Stephen Daniel Rivera was convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder for the gang-related shootings of Richard Hernandez and Juan Alviso. The jury found true the gun and gang enhancements, including that the victims were killed by means of lying in wait. The defendant was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole on each count, plus 25 years to life on each count for the firearm enhancements. Richard Hernandez was 23 years old at the time of death. Juan Manuel Alviso was 23 years old at the time of death.